Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pepptalk, Pepperdine University's podcast dedicated to sparking conversations of personal and global significance, featuring world-renowned professors, faculty, and students from across the university. My name is Alexa Borstad, and I am a host of the Pepptalk podcast and for this series on relationships. Whether you are single or married, a parent or a grandparent, a professional or an executive, relationships are an essential part of our lives, yet we all feel it. The endless distractions, the need to escape, or the demands of the career. If healthy relationships are the center of a flourishing, successful life, why don't we have the kind of relationships we dreamed about in college? Here with us today are Haer and Dee Dee Mayer from the Boone Center for the Family. For nearly 30 years, the Boone Center for the Family has had a transformative impact on the relational and emotional health of individuals, couples, churches, Christian schools and universities, and other ministries. Programs such as Relationship IQ, RelateStrong, and Relate Forward programs integrate sound biblical theology and the best of psychology to empower people to live out healthy relationships in all spheres of life, transforming families, communities, churches, and workplaces into God's intended design. Let's get started with today's episode, Why Are Relationships Hard? Kelly and Dee Dee, welcome to Pepptalk.
Thanks, Alexa. It's great to be here.
At a big picture level, could you shed some light on why relationships can be so difficult and seem to impact us so much?
I think it's important to start from a big picture and remember that at the beginning, God created the world good and perfect, and that included relationships with people. There was perfect relationship. People interacted perfectly with each other, and we had perfect relationship with God. And then when Adam and Eve sinned, they brought about brokenness and things that are not right into the world. And this disrupted the good relationship that we were made for. And from that, each person can carry a sense of shame or this knowing that something's not quite right about me and in the world. And from that shame, that knowing that something is wrong and broken finds its way into relationships. And then we experience conflict that's hurtful, disconnect, distance in relationship with people. And this sin, this brokenness interrupts how we were meant to relate with each other.
Yeah, and I would add, we're designed for deep connection. From Genesis to Revelation, we've got relationships interwoven, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with God, and our relationship with one another. And we're designed to have a sense of community and connection with one another. What we're seeing culturally, and our 19th Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, wrote a book called Together and declared a medical crisis surrounding an issue of loneliness. And in his book, Together, he talks a lot about the social implications and what's going on in our current cultural milieu, where we're just really disconnected and alone and struggling with even knowing how to be intimate and how to create a connection that feeds a part of us that has kind of atrophied in this current cultural climate. And this picture is that we're made to bring the best of ourselves to every equation. This is really the body of Christ and the kingdom of God, that we are each made with unique and distinct parts of ourselves. And all of us have a sense of purpose. We were designed for belonging, and we all have inherent value. And so when we can operate using the best parts of ourselves with one another, we're actually so much stronger together than when we're apart. But a lot of things get in the way of us doing that well in today's society and in culture.
I think one of these themes in the Great Books program at Pepperdine, in Paradise Lost, that was one of the major themes is, living in the garden. The Lord and Adam and Eve, they were in perfect relationship.
Yeah.
And then that was broken, And I think today in today's society, we can see that even further.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And particularly in Western culture, where we're pursuing this independence and individual identities rather than more of a community sense of connection. And so learning how to be connected interpersonally in healthy relationships is something that I think Well, it's what we do at the Boone Center, is we really help people reclaim that part of ourselves, a strength of self, so that they can re-engage deep and meaningful connection with one another.
And part of why this broken relationship hurts so much and is so difficult is we were made relational beings. And that's how we image God, our relational triune God, is that we are relational beings at our core. And so when relationships aren't working the way they're supposed to, it's a big deal. And we really feel its impact. So the greatest hurts and the greatest healing can happen in the dimension of relationships.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of social research is talking about, is actually it turns out that loneliness does a lot more than damage our relationships. It damages our physical health. It damages our mental health. And so a lot of the researchers see growing in our ability to connect in healthy ways with one another is a key to answering some of this mental health crisis, some of our physical ailments, and a lot of the relational things that we're experiencing.
We're integrated whole beings. And so when one part of who we are, how we were designed is off, the other parts are impacted as well.
So practically, what gets in the way of living in relationships as we are designed? What keeps us from enjoying these deep, rich connections and being known?
Sometimes it's us. Sometimes things that happen inside of us impact the way how we feel. I mean, I can just say personally that when you grow up in an environment, I grew up in a home where there was addiction and there was a little bit of anger, and it shaped the way that I engaged relationships with other people. I was a lot more self-protective. And so all of us have stories that we grow up with that define how we both view ourselves and then how we engage relationship with other people. And so tending to the care of my own soul and my own identity is key to me stepping into healthy and thriving relationships, so that I know what I'm bringing to the equation is valuable and I have something to offer.
And I feel like it's so helpful and actually empowering when we recognize that we are part of the problem. We bring some of the challenge to relationship, because if we're responsible, then there's something we can do about it. And there's power that we can have to bring about impact and healing. I think of another challenge we experience today in relationship is technology. Now, technology can be great. It can really be used to help relationships, forge relationships. People can engage with each other in all different ways through technology. And it can also get in the way. And author Sherry Turkle, in her book, Alone Together, recognized this dynamic that technology can foster in relationships called Alone Together. And it functions in two different ways. One, that when we are with a bunch of people and we are all on our cell phones watching them, and I see this all over the place. I remember walking down the street the other week, and there were a group of construction workers outside of a building, and they were sitting on a wall, and they all had their cell phones out looking at it. I'm like, you know what? This reminds me of other places on campus where I see students together, but essentially alone because they're absorbed into their phone. So they're alone together in that way. But then also, if we're physically alone, we're by ourselves in our room, we can be connected and together with people on our phones, and we actually miss out on being alone with ourselves, that we're alone together with other people on our phones when we're physically by ourselves. And both of these dynamics can be problematic because it's taking us away from the people we were meant to be connecting with in the flesh. And then it can also take us away from relationship with ourselves because we're absorbing ourselves with other people when we're actually alone, and we could be using that time to think and reflect or connect with God, for instance.
Yeah, real practically too. I have a great story that communicates that. As I was doing an anxiety workshop with some people in Northern California, and one high school student going into college talked about technology and its connection with anxiety. And she communicated, hey, I get it. Yeah, anxiety does increase with technology. But when I was little and at the table and you wanted me to be quiet, you handed me the phone. And I feel like I missed out on some important skills. And you just sort of think about the skills that we could miss out on, about sitting and listening to a conversation, not expecting to be constantly distracted, learning how to wait or engage or participate and be involved in other people's stories, that those are internal muscles that we build, that we as adults, I think how many of us get to a social situation and gravitate towards our phone when we're feeling like we're not a part of the conversation. It's so easy, but it also would be a mistake to recognize technology as only an enemy of healthy communication. I think technology can be used as an incredible presence. And actually, Vivek Murthy describes this in his book as well, that there are places that technology is enhanced. My daughter, who has a community on Twitch, is an example of this because she has a pretty amazing community across the globe. And somebody in her community had reached out from Switzerland that she connected with and was having a hard time. And lo and behold, he comes out to visit us. And the first words out of his mouth as he comes to visit us, your daughter really saved me. I was really depressed and she got me into counseling. So this isolated, alone environment that he had existed in, technology was the connector from Switzerland to California. And it turned into a physical presence because he got on a plane and came. Now, technology is not enough to sustain. He needs to be cultivating community in Switzerland. But technology has a powerful capacity to be used for good in connecting us with one another. Even with my new grandbaby who, we'll send pictures and videos. And it's a way to keep my family connected and up to date on just everyday changes in a newborn. So little things like that we can use really in positive ways to keep us connected in significant and meaningful ways.
Thinking about technology at church, I think about how I have my church's app on my phone and it has a list of every person or every family there and their names. And how many times have I opened up that app to find someone's name that I couldn't remember? And now that I'm reminded of their name, it helps to forge relationship with them because I can walk up to them and say, "Hi, Alexa, how are you?" or whatever, versus that awkward, like, "Oh, wait, what's your name? I've already asked so many times. I can't ask you again." So technology can be so helpful. But then I also think about how sometimes, church can use technology and we can stream services online. And that's great, if you're sick or something like this. But then there's other times where people resort to watching church at home and miss out on being physically present with the body of Christ. And this can really impact the community that people experience at church or not. We've been at a new church the last, 2.5 years now. And this is a church that really prioritizes being present at church. And I have felt the difference of people showing up at church very regularly. It's kind of unusual for people to miss church. And this has been great versus I think of other church experiences where other church communities where people were watching church at home a lot more and how my experience of community was not as rich or strong when it wasn't the same faces to see each week and be able to kind of build relationship in that way.
Yeah, I will say too, I was an Air Force kid, so I moved around a bunch. So I had a lot of different churches growing up. And I do think one of the silver linings of COVID was I got to reconnect with some churches that I haven't seen in a decade or so. And that was really special for me. I even got to hop on Zoom calls with old guitar teachers or different things of that sort. But I do think getting back into the rhythm of going to church in person was definitely tough, especially in California with all the laws surrounding COVID. Some of the churches that I serve right now, they're just starting to see people come back from being online, which is great. It's helping the numbers, but it's definitely thrown a wrench into things with having half of the audience online and half in person and still getting people back. But I find that very interesting. What are your guys' thoughts on technology and dating? Have you heard any interesting stories?
I know so many young people who using technology and some of the dating apps has been their story. And in such significant and positive ways. And you also hear other stories where it's not been so positive. But I think it's such a creative way to get to know people that you might not have met any other way, particularly in our current climate. And it is second nature. Like young people have grown up with technology as a second nature to them in a way that some of the older generations have not. So it is a phenomenal way to creatively connect with people with like values and vision across where you would never have met otherwise.
Yeah. Technology has so impacted the dating world. And I even think personally how my husband and I were introduced by a mutual friend. And this friend I did not stay in touch with the 10 years after college, but she saw my life unfold on social media. And she said, oh, wow, Kelly's been to seminary. She likes dancing and desserts. And oh, Adam's been to seminary, likes dancing and desserts. I should set them up. And if it wasn't for technology and social media, Anna would not have been in contact with me or known anything about my life from which to reach out to me and set me up with my husband. I'm so thankful she did, obviously. And on the other hand, I've heard young people talk about how today, because so much online dating happens, which is great, and it is the number one way that people are meeting their future spouse, that is really great. But what can happen is, say at church or other social settings, people can become so accustomed to dating happens online that they're not even thinking to ask someone out on a date in person, or that's, I've heard it's almost even looked down upon, or it's kind of seen as like, this isn't what we do here. Like that happens online. And then you're missing out on opportunities for getting to know a person in the flesh.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd add is sometimes the technology, even in the workplace, this work for home culture that we have, is we've got to be mindful of what skills we're losing, right? I know a number of people that have social anxiety being in environments with real life people, as opposed to the safety of their own home behind a camera where they can, be dressed up on top and in their pajamas on the bottom, and that comfort that it has really limited their capacity and some of the skills that they've built. So just being aware and mindful of how technology is impacting you. And my husband, who is in technology, always likes to say it's like a hammer. It can be used in a way that is constructive and beautiful, or it can be really destructive. And so it's our job to really discern and navigate how that impacts the way we engage relationships.
Yeah, I will say I'm a recent graduate of college from Pepperdine. And a lot of my friends have never worked an in-person job.
Wow.
Which is just crazy to me. My first job, I was an office coordinator, and I was constantly in the office doing executive assistant work and all the rest. But, my biggest piece of advice for new graduates is get a job that is in the office, at least for the first 1 or 2 years, just so you can learn how to talk to executives, guests, all the rests. Because a corporate structure is very hierarchical. And I think you don't get to experience that right away in college, So I find that very interesting. So how can we engage better in this world? What do you guys think with technology? How can we, use it to our advantage? How can we engage better despite these limiting factors?
Yeah, I think being mindful of putting yourself in environments that may feel a little bit uncomfortable, like stepping into relationship, going out and meeting face to face, finding activities and things that you share. I think of you, Kelly, with biking, road biking, but cultivate habits and fun things that you enjoy doing, and then do them in a group and community. So really take advantage of growing those muscles. Really recognize that being in our modern culture has impacted some of the skills that we rely on for social interaction and intimacy. And we can take a role in building those. We're not limited by what we've not learned. We can step in and learn those things.
I think of what we mentioned earlier, the helpfulness of recognizing the role you play and being equipped or being aware to think, okay, just fact of the matter, relationships are broken. I am broken as a person. I'm not who I was designed to be. And that relationships take intentionality. They're not just going to happen smoothly without a hitch. And so if an issue, a speed bump comes up, well, I got to bounce. Like, that's not it at all. We should expect and anticipate there to be difficulties and challenge, and that we're going to have to grow to work through it well. And kind of like Dee Dee was saying, when an anxiety-provoking situation comes up, again, this is often can be social for people, that this is an opportunity to move towards the anxiety. This is the growing place for you. When anxiety comes up, this is where you can grow a muscle. And moving towards and ultimately through the anxiety can be so powerful in building a healthier self and building healthier relationships.
Yeah, and I will say I was just with a group of next-gen leaders who are in the space of marriage ministry. And one of the things they said is, we do feel like we've missed some skills. And we do feel like we've gone into this with these extreme expectations of, I'm not going to step into a relationship unless I find the absolutely perfect person. And the truth of the matter is, you're not bringing an absolutely perfect person. We all are broken, and we all need to have a humble sense and awareness of part of the beauty of relationships is learning how to build trust in who we really are together, and knowing and being known and loved in spite of and because of what we know of each other, that we're kind of messy and we can step into real relationship. We can do that. And when we do, it's really beautiful because we become encouragers of one another. We're in it with each other. We get what it means to fall and skin our knees. And we can be a part of saying, okay, yeah, I've been there, done that before. Let's step back up and let's do this a little bit together. And so, yeah, I just think there's so much opportunity when we're aware and willing to step in.
Yeah. And realizing that Jesus models forgiveness. He forgives us. And that's what we often need to do in relationship with others, being ready to forgive and forgive ourselves when we mess up too.
Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts today. I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Alexa. It was so good to be here with you.
Great to be here.
This concludes the first episode of our series on relationships. I hope you will join us for our next episode when Kelly and Dee Dee return to share the secret to establishing meaningful, intimate relationships. This series is made possible by the generosity of our listeners and those who give to Pepperdine University and its many centers and institutes, and in this case, the Boone Center for the Family. For more information about the Boone Center for the Family, visit boonecenter.pepperdine.edu. If you enjoyed this podcast, we encourage you to share it with your family and friends. Thanks for listening. We will see you on the next episode of Pep Talk.